Howdy, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and I wanted to do kind of a fresh, new type of tier list here just for the preseason, which I'm going to call my off-meta tier list. So I'll talk about what that means here in just a second, but if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Come by, check us out on stream. We'll be trying out a bunch of these champs over the next week or so, having a little fun in the preseason. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any interesting new builds you've come across as well. But we're on Twitch, the Strategy Professor at Twitch, starting around midnight, usually going until about 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And during winter break, I might be able to extend those hours and start a little earlier, maybe stay a bit later. So just stay tuned for that. Be sure to follow on Twitch, like, subscribe on YouTube. And if you want more notifications, then you can follow me on Twitter as well, at the StratProf. And I'm going to be, coming up with tons and tons of new content for the preseason. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So, off-meta tier list. This is my first time doing something like this. You know that I always try to be honest with you guys in terms of what I think can actually help you win games and not just all caps you. So, this is going to kind of be a blend in where I tried my hardest to find what I think could actually be pretty decent that also is very rarely played. So, something that has I didn't make it a hard number, but like a 3% or less play rate. So I'm not going to talk about stuff like Rakan, Leona, or whatever in this tier list. I will do another tier list. I might even release it today, but definitely tomorrow, if not today. That is the mainstream, just what I think is the best of the best in solo queue. But for this one, I was specifically hunting for things that I never talk about hardly and stuff that I think might go under the radar with a lot of other people. So I've got a select few here that I think could actually be good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. And as always, my methodology here is statistics aren't going to be that helpful because these champions haven't been that popular and there's some major meta shifts with them. So usually I look at a combination of stats and just sort of forward looking where I think the meta is going. And the range that I look for is typically something like maybe low diamond into low gold into silver, so kind of that mid elo. So obviously it's going to be a bit different in terms of the meta and what's going to be strong if you're playing in bronze or if you're playing in Masters Plus. It's going to be a bit different, but I think this is going to be relevant for most elos. Okay, so number one, oh, and the couple of things that are informing my choice, also just one final thing before we get into the picks there. I think there are going to be 3 items that really define a lot of this preseason, definitely in the mid lane, but I think that they're going to be really important in the bot lane as well, and that's going to be Cosmic Drive, Demonic Embrace, and Everfrost. So let me just talk about this just really quickly, why I think these items are so strong. Everfrost, nothing much really changed here except for the cost, and 400 gold is a massive, massive difference. Just look at what they did with Turbo Kim Tank when they changed that and made that to 400 less gold, right, from 3200 to 2800. Completely defined a meta. That was like the Udyr. I don't remember the other champs. He was the most notable one that really abused that item. I think it's going to be very similar here, but I think this is even applicable to a wider range of champions. I think that almost anybody that has an AP ratio is going to want to go this item. I think it's going to be extremely overpowered. So I would abuse this and just gain the elo while you can, because it's very efficient to start with. It's almost 130% efficient, not including the active, which is very good. It's a 1.5 second root that also does some respectable damage, about as much as a Luden's proc on a single target, and it's only on a 30-second cooldown. So this is going to particularly empower champions that need that lower cost. That's a lot of support champions with AP ratios. The 2800 gold is a massive, massive difference. I can't overstate that, especially for supports who are on a big time budget. So this is going to open up a lot of build paths for those champs. And champions, obviously, that are going to benefit from a ton of mana in the early game. So maybe they've struggled with mana in the past and they couldn't get an affordable mana option. Because you can get Lost Chapter early, which is really good. So that's something to look out for. And someone where they can chain that CC together to come up with something really meaningful. Either it's going to allow them to hit another skill shot or stack up an ability for a large amount of time, or they have synergy with the new rune, which I can pull up here. They changed around, like, I think it's the Frost rune or whatever, to where now whenever you immobilize somebody then it's going to spread these icy tendrils and slow people for a really long time and reduce their damage by 15% against allies. Glacial Augment. So Everfrost is going to pair together very well with champions that can use Glacial Augment. So this could open up build paths for other people that just didn't have a really good rune, that might have a good rune. So Tom Kench will talk about that in a second. He just didn't have a great rune. He couldn't really use Aftershock effectively, at least in a lot of cases. And, Guardian was a little underwhelming on him. It was okay. But having access to something like this could potentially be really strong with his kit. So it does open up possibilities for champions that, need that little bit. Now, he might be able to go Aftershock as well if he goes Everfrost and Aftershock, because that's going to count as an immobilization for Aftershock. So there are a lot of ways that this feeds in and is very, very strong. But I think it's going to definitely be a meta-defining item. The other items that I think are going to be huge are going to be Cosmic Drive. One final thing about Everfrost also. It just has like a really, really good build path. The fact that you can go double Amp Tome early is going to give you a huge power spike that you can't get a lot of other ways if you go for things like Mandate or Shirelias or whatever. A lot of times you don't have access to the double Amp Tome. That gives you a lot of kill threat if you get ahead early for that level 6 all-in, which is important on champions like Malphite, which we'll talk about here in a second. So that's really nice. And then the rest of it's great too. I mean, Kindle Gem, built out of Ruby Crystal, very cost-efficient, good item. Additional Amp Tome, and then it only costs like 265 to combine it. So really, really smooth, very approachable path. They got rid of the stupid Blasting Wand, which is really a pain in the butt to get a support, just because of your back timings, because you're always having to go back and get more wards, and unless you got a kill, it's hard to come back with 850 a lot of times if you're keeping your vision up. So this is really, really good timing there. Cosmic Drive, very similar. Also, really good timing. Bunch of Amp Tomes, build into useful little 800, 900 gold items like Fiendish Codex, Aether Wisp, Kindle Gem. All of these are excellent item pickups. And supports, have really needed this, especially on the AP support side. You do have the mirror, but losing access to Forbidden Idol early on is really annoying. So a lot of your good secondary items, well, you didn't lose access, but they changed it to where it's a pretty bad item in a lot of circumstances. But a lot of secondary items like Staff of Flowing Water, Ardent Censer, things like that, they are good and cost efficient on things like Enchanters. But, they really made Forbidden Idol pretty bad. They took off the ability haste, and you have to start off with a Fairy Charm, which, can kind of feel bad as a second item, because usually your mana is, like, pretty good at that point after you finish your Mythic. So this just has a really good build path for a second item. So the stats are very similar. They're extremely cost efficient. So it doesn't tell... Yeah, here's the percentages. So it's 110% efficient, not including the active. And when the active's going, it's a whopping 165% efficient. And this item, like, all you have to have is 3 separate champion basic attacks or abilities. Just hit them with 3 of anything. You're going to trigger it, and it stays up for the entire fight now for a minimum of 10% bonus movement speed. It starts off at 20, but then it goes down to 10, and you get 40 extra ability power, and it lasts for the entire fight until you have not taken or received damage for 5 seconds. So in these longer fights, it's going to be really, really good. It's just an incredible item. It's going to be all over the place mid lane, but I think you might even want to consider it as a second item for supports. It's that good. It also has health on it. Everfrost additionally has health on it, which is going to make it viable for bruiser, types of AP supports, but also just really nice even for stuff like Recon or other range supports that just don't want to get blown up by assassins. This is a godsend that you can have a really high quality item that's going to have some decent health on it. So very, very good item. I expect to see this a lot, and I think it'll be, a defining item in the meta. And then Demonic Embrace is the last one, and I had thought that this wasn't going to be that great, but upon further examination, I think this actually could be very good on bruiser, types of supports, right? Especially if you pair this together with Everfrost, and that's something I hadn't really thought of before. But that could be a very good combination. They both have health on it. You get to apply potentially an AoE damage to them, an extra AoE. Because remember, Everfrost, you get the root in the middle for the 1.5, but it's still an AoE cone that slows on the edges and also applies damage. So they actually increased Dark Pack's damage by a ton. It's 8% total now. I think it's 4.8 on live, or what was live yesterday. So it was 4.8, but now it's a full 8. So that's almost double the damage that you're dealing over time with this item for melee champions. For range champions, it's still 4.8. So it's still like okay, but not amazing on ranged champions. Now the build path is worse for this. So I don't think you'll see this as often as Cosmic. But because you don't get a lot of value out of it. It's like Giant's Belt is alright because it does build out of Ruby Crystal. Blasting Wand sucks, as I mentioned before. Amp Tome is good, and then it has a pretty high completion cost of 815. But once you actually complete it, that's where you unlock the power. So it's very good. And then they added on not only this unique right here, but you gain ability power equal to 2% of your bonus health. So if you're playing a champion that has high base health, or champion where you might get other bonus health items, this can be pretty good. Even this plus, you know, some runes that give bonus health, plus just having high, you know, bonuses that you can get from other things. If you have 1,000 bonus health, that's still pretty good. That's 20 extra ability power, puts it at 80 ability power total. So I think it's a pretty good option on champions like Swain. Swain is ranged, so you don't get as much out of the damage, but as far as the Dark Pack, that does work pretty good. And things like Maokai, you know, possibly things like Malphite, potentially, although I think that Cosmic's probably better on him. So this one, like I said, maybe less popular in some circles, but I think that you definitely could see it if you want a tanky AP champion. Okay, so let's finally get to the list here. I just wanted to, you know, set up that preamble. So Tom Kench, and he's been missing for a long time, and I just thought of him before I made this video. I'd been thinking about some of these other champs, but I think he might actually be positioned to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of some of these shifts. So Tom Kench, if you remember the good old days or the bad old days, depending on what you think of Tom Kench, he was an extremely dominant support champion, and the reason why he was dominant was because his W could devour allies and basically give them a free Quicksilver slash Zhonya's, just a free get out of jail card for a lot of people. And other than that, he wasn't that useful. Like, his Tongue Lash was okay. I guess he did have the ultimate where he could rotate around the map, and in professional play in particular, that was really good at combating split pushes. So he was a good champion for those reasons, but they nerfed that. They kind of knocked him out of the meta in that sense, and now he's much more item and stat dependent than he was in the past, because he doesn't have that, you know, that ultra value just built into the kit that doesn't rely on any stats whatsoever. However, he has been decent in top lane at different points, and I think that if people just reimagine him as an AP bruiser champion in the bot lane, that he could actually be really good again, because they gave him some extra AP ratios when they did his rework, and this has been very quiet because as a support, you can't really afford AP items, and he wasn't that great with stuff like Mandate. You could try it, it was okay, or like Shirelia's, but wasn't that great. However, new Everfrost, potentially extremely good on Tom Kench. So let's look at his kit here and his ratios really quickly. So his Q still does pretty respectable damage, up to 280 damage when you max this out, plus a 70% AP ratio, plus applies a stack of Acquired Taste, which is 2.5% of your bonus health. So again, if you're stacking health items, if you're getting like 1,000 health, that's going to be an extra 25 damage, in addition to just some amount based on your level. You know, during the laning phase, maybe like 20 extra damage. That's still a lot of damage, right? If you're looking at having 3 points in this at 180, and then with all these other bonuses, that's probably going to put it at least to like 200 or 220 by level 5. That's more than a lot of ultimates. So that's a lot of poke damage. And you heal yourself for kind of a wimpy amount to start with, 20, but it's also 5% of your missing health. So if you're missing like 200 health, that's healing you for 30, which is not bad, especially when you combine it with your gray skin, which can heal you through some stuff as well. So he does get like pretty good sustain in lane for a tank, and he has pretty good poke. It's also very mana efficient, right? It's 50 mana, scaling down to 42, so you can really spam this a lot. And it has a 6-second cooldown. So, he surprisingly, for a tank, has some pretty good poke, especially if you put a little AP on him. You grab a couple of amp tomes early, he can really start popping off. 0.7 is a good ratio for a lot of something that's that spammable. And then you have Abyssal Dive. Now, this is something that is new, that hasn't really been worked around a lot in the bot lane, but I think this has a lot of synergies with Everfrost. So what this does is he basically channels for 1.3 seconds. Check out that timer. That's less than 1.5, isn't it? So he channels for 1.35 seconds and then blinks to the location after a 0.15 delay. So that's exactly 1.5 total seconds. And then does a knock up. So when he knocks people up, he stuns them for 1 second. And it has a 100% AP ratio on it. So he's going to do the full AP ratio when he knocks somebody up. And if he hits at least one person with this, then it lowers the cooldown by half. So that means that, you know, it's probably, if it's like 20 seconds or something on average in the early to mid game, then it's only a 10-second cooldown. And when you consider that something like Everfrost has 20 ability haste on it, and if you choose to go for something like Cosmic Drive, that can potentially have an additional, you know, 20% or 30% actually ability haste on it. It's going to be really good. You might actually be able to cast it multiple times in a fight. And like the damage is not completely eye-popping. It's like 100 damage, but you got to remember it's got a 100% AP ratio on it, so it ends up doing quite a lot. So I think this is, and 40% of the mana cost are also refunded, so that makes it a lot more affordable. So I think that's going to give him a lot more reliability if you hit him with the Everfrost first. So a combo would be you tongue lash him. That's going to slow him down for 2 seconds. And then once they're slowed, you should be able to hit Everfrost. Once you hit Everfrost on them, then that should virtually guarantee, unless they flash or they have like a really quick blink, that you're going to be able to hit that Abyssal Drive on them. Now, I doubt that you're able to cast this while you Everfrost. If you can start this animation and then Everfrost on top of that, which again, I doubt, it's channeled, yeah, so you're probably not going to be able to do it. But even if you can't do that, it's going to make it extremely likely you're going to hit this on most targets. So that's a really, really big thing to add consistency to his kit that he doesn't have. And he's just tanky, right? He's got that gray skin. Now, this does not have an AP ratio on it, but it does scale with your max health. So you are getting health items when you get things like Everfrost that can be useful. And his Devour, right? When we come down to the ultimate, that's got a 100% AP ratio on that shield again. So this is going to be an extremely massive shield on these people. And it lasts for 2.5 seconds when you absorb them. Now, it says refreshing when they're regurgitated. So I haven't played with new Kench a lot because I just don't think he's been that good a support. But if this means that when you eat them, if they're taking some kind of AoE damage like Ignite, you can absorb a lot of that dot damage they're taking or whatever. And then, or if like they eat a Zed ultimate, like you allow Zed to put the ult on them first and then you eat them, I believe they get a shield, and then when you spit them out, it refreshes it. So you could get a double shield in some circumstances. So that's a massive shield. Now, it's only 2.5 seconds, but they're basically invulnerable for 2.5 seconds with that. Again, massive ratio on it. Or you can eat enemies and do 15% of their max health plus 5% for an additional, AP, and then spit them out and do some pretty big damage. So I think that this could be something that's actually good, because I think even if Devour's not available, like this kit is potentially strong enough when you have the poke damage, you have the knock up with like pretty good damage as well, good AP ratios on both of those, so you can trade effectively. It's going to be really hard to all in you. So I think you might see a Bruiser AP Kench. Potentially. Obviously, you get a 1.5 second stun if you keep applying these taste stacks to them. Now, I don't think you can reapply them for a certain amount of time. I can't remember if it goes on cooldown or not, if you can reapply to the same champ 3 times. When you use your Q, it knocks all the stacks off and stuns them. Oh, I didn't even realize that. I forgot they changed that. Wow, okay, well that's really good then. I just haven't seen that interaction a lot, I guess. But you can actually eat enemy champions now. If they have 3 stacks, you can devour them with your tongue lash. So you can tongue lash them with your Q, and then knock them up with your W, auto attack them once more. Remember, they're knocked up for 1 second. Auto attack them again, potentially. And then if they blink or try to flash away, you can tongue lash after them and then eat them with your tongue lash to pull them back towards you for the regurgitate. I have not seen that interaction yet, but I was always wishing they would do that for years. So that could be really, really cool to kind of run people down now that you're going to be able to apply these tongue lashes. So I think it's really cool. I think he has a lot of potential. If he is too squishy, you can actually go Aftershock on him now as well. I think a little more comfortably because Frost Queen's Claim will trigger that Aftershock if you need that. And then you have this knockup that can trigger the Aftershock, and you have the stun off of Tongue Lash. So you have 3 different ways you can trigger Aftershock on him. I guess if you eat an enemy, that counts as triggering Aftershock, I think, as well, because that's a suppression. So he could be really cool here. You know, like I said, I think that Everfrost is going to be fantastic on him. And then I'm not sure if you would want to go Cosmic or Demonic. I'm thinking kind of Cosmic because, again, you get a lot of things that are really good. He has great abilities. You're going to have so much more stickiness with that 30 ability haste. You get the 5% movement speed to stay on people, and you get the 10% to stay in combat on top of people. And you get a really good AP ratio with 250 health. Now, and a really good build path as well. Like I said, I can't overstate just how cool and how useful this build path is. Now, with Demonic, obviously the build path is a little less enticing. You do get 200 more health, which is very good. You do get that scaling with your bonus health, and you do get sustained damage over time. So if you're if you're against a bunch of enemies, a bunch of tanks is what I'm trying to say, then maybe this is going to be a little bit better. But I think it's cool. I mean, why not? You get all 3 in a long game. Now, with this, you know, type of build, you're not going to have access to Grievous Wounds as much, so that is kind of a bummer. With a lot of these champs, you know, we're sacrificing the something like Thornmail in order to get this. You can always get the little Bramble Vest or something if you want to. It's not fantastic, but since you are sort of working towards these more expensive items, maybe that could be worth it. And let's be real, a lot of your allies are just going to get Grievous Wounds anyways, half the time. So you're going to have, usually most teams have 2 or 3 people with Grievous Wounds, so you might be able to get away with it. But Tahm Kench, my sleeper OP pick of this patch, so check it out. I know people on the channel have been asking me to play Kench again for years, so we're going to try him out. I think it'll be good. Okay, Malphite is another one that I think is going to be a huge beneficiary here. Now, Malphite already wasn't like that bad as support, right? He did have some glaring weaknesses in the laning phase, but if you get out of the laning phase, he's really strong. Sorry, I'm blanking on the name, but I've had some people donate before for Malphite support, and I've played it, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. Obviously, his ultimate's really strong. That's, you know, the main attraction to him. It's 130-second cooldown. So, you know, it scales really well with ability haste. And he actually does have decent harassment in the laning phase, kind of like Tahm Kench. It's probably really underestimated. Now, Tahm Kench's is 900 range, but you have to have a clear shot at them. You can't do it through minions. Seismic Shard can go through minions, but it's only 625. That still outranges a lot of AD carries, though, and is going to definitely outrange, you know, melee supports and things like that. Not that you really want to use it on melee supports, but you can hit most ADs except for like Caitlyn, Ashe. You might even still be able to get close enough to hit them. But the problem is it's been very expensive, and you can go out of mana pretty quickly because you don't have really high base mana. You know what's really good for fixing that? Lost Chapter. So if you can get that Lost Chapter early, that's going to allow you to keep up, you know, the spamming on the Seismic Shards to help you out. It does also apply a really strong slow later on and allows you to get up closer to people as well, or run away. So he has the ability to get out of hot situations. It's almost impossible to run him down when he's spamming these Seismic Shards on you. So it gives him a lot of extra sort of control over movement in fights, in addition to pretty good damage. Guarantees that he's going to hit Comet. I'm not sure if you still want to go for that or if there might be some other runes that could be good. But that could be all right. Thunderclap, not really that good. You just put 1 point in this. It's okay. Gives you a little bit of extra armor. Gives you some extra basic attack damage. I think you want to go for Ground Slam next. That cripple is really big. There are a lot of auto-attacking champions out there where Cripple's going to be a big deal, especially, obviously, the 80 carry. After you ult the 80 carry, if you don't kill them on the spot, you're going to lower their attack speed by 50%. Keep in mind, this doesn't work against champions like Master Yi that are immune to cripples. I don't think there are many other champions like that, but just be aware of that. But overall, still going to be pretty good burst damage. And Everfrost just fixes a lot of his problems, right? It gives him the mana that he wants early, gives him the extra AP so that he still keeps up a respectable amount of pressure in the laning phase. It's got the health on it, which scales with his passive rather pretty well, so he can take trades in the laning phase. His ultimate comes back, or his passive comes back pretty quickly, so you can take some decent trades in the laning phase with him. And that's really been his weakest point, right? Where you just didn't do anything other than just spam a couple of seismic shards and then you're right? And you're just kind of standing around in the laning phase. Now you get to do that, and it's going to be much more effective. And it transitions really well with Everfrost later, because after you ult, this gives you one more piece of CC, so now they're going to be, chain CC'd for 3 seconds, right? 1.5 off of this, and then an additional 1.5 off of Everfrost. So just a fantastic combination. Like I said, gives you the health, gives you the cooldown reduction that you want, so you get more ultimates. It's just a match made in heaven for Malphite, because he just really hasn't had a great item, right? A lot of people just went like Ludens on him or something before, and it's really underwhelming. So at 2,800 gold, that's going to help out a lot for support Malphite. And then Cosmic Drive, I still think could be very good. Obviously, really high impact ultimate, great candidate for getting the ability haste. Gives you that movement speed so you can gap close on people to get in range for that ultimate and really stick to people and just keep auto attacking, keep landing more Qs. I think it could be a very good rune on him. And then Demonic Embrace, again, might be okay if you need to be a little bit tankier. Obviously, you're going to be able to keep reapplying that burn damage with your Qs, with your Thunderclaps. It does not have ability haste on it, which is kind of a bummer. It doesn't have movement speed on it, but it's possible you could get this. But again, I think Cosmic's probably going to be your ticket here. And then the game's going to be over, by the time you get Everfrost Cosmic. But I think that could be a really, really strong combination if you want Engage, but you also want to have some AP burst damage with some pretty good trading in the laning phase. I think he's a strong option. Now, Maokai is, pushing the limits of off meta here. He is played like 3 or 4%, but I know I've played him on the channel, and he has gotten some attention from other content creators in the past, although not as much as I think he probably deserved. But he's already, pretty good. He doesn't need a lot of help to be decent, but this might make his AP build even better because of his interaction with Demonic Embrace. That was already a good item with his normal AP build, but now that it's doing 8% instead of 5% per seed is going to be huge. And the fact that it gives more health scales really well with his passive. And that you get that extra ability power off of stacking more health is going to be good. So it's already a good item on him. It's no secret, and I think that he's possibly one of the best beneficiaries of it just because he can trigger it as a ranged champion a lot with his seeds, but he gets the full benefit of being a melee champion and having access to that 8%, which again is coming close to double damage. It's like 40% more damage on this item. So I think that's just going to be fantastic. It's just everything that he wants for a change. He's very good with this. And then Everfrost, I think, obviously Mandate is good on him, but I think that Everfrost might be even better. I can't remember the range on Everfrost, but I believe it might actually outrange his W. I think it's maybe 700 range, and if that's true, that's obviously extremely good, because then you can fish for a root with your Everfrost, and then once they're rooted, then you go in with your W, and then it's lights out. Then you can ultimate, go in with your W, Q, knock them back into your ultimate, just do your Maokai things, and take over. So it actually has more health than Mandate early on, so he's going to be tankier with it. It's only a marginal amount more gold, and I would say it's probably going to be more damage. It doesn't have the proc damage off of Mandate, on every seed, but it's going to give him the mana, which he desperately wants in order to spam more seeds. That's something that he was always missing with that previous build, which felt pretty bad. That if you went for the Mandate plus Demonic, you just didn't have a mana item and you run out of mana pretty quickly, right? You could take like Mana Flow Ban and stuff like that to help out a little bit, but it definitely was an issue. So having access to the 600 mana plus the Lost Chapter in the laning phase, where you can just keep spamming more seeds to really just get control of the entire bottom side of the map, you're going to have almost infinite mana early on. It's just going to be huge. And then, of course, his seeds last longer based on your health. So taking, having an item with a little bit more health is going to be helpful. And then just being able to chain it together. As I've said with every other champ, just having an extra 1.5 seconds of CC plus a little bit of extra burst damage when you're already a champion like Maokai that can lock people up for like 4 seconds is just going to be an absurd amount of CC. And it does give you a little bit more protection as well if you do want to escape. You can use that Everfrost appeal a little bit as well. So not how you typically use it, but it's good. Hell, it's even wave clear if you want. I believe it still affects, all enemies. You can help wave clear. If you're trying to help push your lane, you can, just Everfrost the minions as they're walking in, Q them, and that'll help your ADC wave clear a little bit more. So Everfrost just kind of does everything. It's super OP, as I've said a million times, and I think it would be a really good match for Maokai as well. But I think you definitely want Demonic Embrace. Cosmic's really good. It's hard to turn down Cosmic, but just that burn damage with the seeds on Demonic is just going to be nasty. So yeah, you could be seeing AP Maokai, making a comeback with Everfrost plus Demonic. Orianna is the last one that I think actually could be like really strong. Like these I think are playable. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be S class, but I would, say they're going to be at least B, maybe C in some cases. We'll just have to see. Obviously a lot has changed, so we're going to have to test it. But these are definitely playable. And I think that Orianna, I tried her out last night on the PBE, and it was actually surprisingly, like, pretty good. And people have asked about Orianna for years, is she good? And, my answer is always, she has a good kit for a support. It's just the numbers on her just weren't quite right. Her mana costs are very expensive. She didn't have any sort of, like max HP damage or burst damage like Brand or Zyra with, the plants, with the with the burn. But she has quite a lot of bully potential in the laning phase if you can get the mana to keep her up. Again, Everfrost going to give you access to that Lost Chapter early, going to give you double Amp Tome, so it's going to be a really good combination with her. And I was maxing W. I'm not 100% sure what you should be doing, but I was maxing W and then doing shield secondary and having only 1 point in Q. And that can become, mana expensive, but if you are getting, Everfrost again, I think that's probably okay, especially if you go for Airy and then Mana Flow Band, and then you go Frostfang early. Like, that's a lot of mana regen that can help, give you a lot of harass. And so her numbers aren't, 100% eye-popping. 240 on this is okay, but if you combine it with Airy Poke, and just the extra movement speed that you get off of this, 3 seconds, just giving your allies 50% movement speed for 3 seconds to engage is huge in a lot of cases, right? That's a very, very, that's basically a Shirelia's, almost literally. So, okay, no, it looks like bonus movement speed, stepping on the field. Okay, no, it's 2 seconds. So not quite Shirelia's, but it's good. So it leaves the thing on the field for 3 seconds, and then anyone that touches it is slowed by 50% for 2 seconds, which is a lot, but also the speed up by 50% for 2 seconds is huge. So the damage is very good, but don't underestimate the movement speed modifier. That's also really big. And then Command Protect is actually very cost efficient. It's only 60 mana at all ranks. Gives you 30 resistances. Whoever you put it on, 30. That's a lot of resistances. That's very, very good. And you also get a nice shield. 220 is big. That's about as big as a Janna shield. Now, it does only have a 0.5 AP ratio, but, the resists are very big, very big. So, and it's a non-decaying shield for 2.5 seconds. So I think that's a pretty nice shield. Pretty good range too. 1120 is some big range for that. So very, very good protection kind of capabilities. And then, of course, her ultimate has a 0.8 ratio with a pretty good, amount of damage on it. So I think this might be Ori's time to shine, right? The Everfrost at 2800 is going to fix a lot of her problems. It's going to make her a really good bully in the early game, fix her mana problems. Again, give her some really good setup, right? Where you can Everfrost, you hit them with Everfrost, you can combo them with Command Shockwave plus W for massive burst. You can, move your ball forward and slow them with the W for 2 seconds. That should allow you to get into range to Everfrost, and then after you have the Everfrost on them, then you should be able to ultimate and take them down. So very, very good with a lot of the Wombo combo comps out there. You've got Jarvan, who's very popular, that wants to go in. Malphite's going to be extremely strong in top and mid lane. He's going to be everywhere with Everfrost probably. Once people figure out just how strong I think he is. He's already pretty good. And now he has a non-meme item he can get. It's going to be trouble. So there's a lot of Wombo combos you can do with him, or you can do with Orianna. So very good. Offers some great protection, great harassment early on, pretty good scaling, fantastic with Everfrost, probably very, very strong with Cosmic Drive. She's got everything that she wants on it. Health, ability haste, ability power, movement speed, the whole 9 yards. You can constantly reposition and just put the ball where you need it to be. And don't forget, her auto attacks really start hurting in the early game. You don't always appreciate this in the mid lane, but especially as double ranged bot, and especially when you get to run around the whole time with all this extra movement speed and just keep auto attacking people. If it's the same target within 4 seconds, it stacks up to 2 times, doing a lot of extra damage, 20% bonus damage per stack. Doing all this extra bonus magic damage. So her auto attacks, if you get to stay in combat and just keep attacking, it adds up. It's a lot of damage. So that does give her just a little bit of extra oomph in sustained fights that may not necessarily be immediately apparent to people that haven't played a lot of Orianna. Last few picks here. I don't want this to be too long, but I do want to spend a decent amount of time on it because, again, these are all really weird picks, except for maybe Maokai, that people don't often play and support that I think are very strong. So we'll do a few more here. Gragas, I think, can still be pretty good. I don't think he's quite as good as something like Malphite as far as you want the massive engage. But I think he definitely can be pretty strong, right? And so what's held back Gragas during the laning phase is that he just doesn't do a lot. That's the big problem. He can all in with his E, but his damage isn't that great early. It's okay. So you could, in theory, do 3 points of barrel now if you want to go with Everfrost. And, just spam that for a little bit more harassment. That could be a pretty good pick. I'm not sure if that's going to be better than just straight up maxing E. Now, he is much better at dealing with enemy engage. If you time your E properly, you can knock Leona out of her engage. Or, if your ally gets hooked by Nautilus or by Thresh or something, you can knock them out of the sky. So he has that really good displacement with his E. Obviously, if something like Jarvan is trying to flag and drag in, or just anyone that's trying to jump in, Tristana is trying to jump on your AD carry, you can interrupt all of these things with your E. So that's something that's very unique about him that I think is really helpful. And I'm not sure if you max this first or if you do 3 points of Q in the laning phase and then max it. I think maybe 3 in Q if you're going for Everfrost, just so you have some poke damage early on. And he does have good sustain with his passive. But the big thing I think that's going to be huge, that's going to help him out a ton, is adding that consistency to his explosive cast with Everfrost. Kind of like I was talking about with Tom Kench, where you can use Everfrost to make sure that your W is going to hit in a lot of situations. If you body slam in, you hit him with the body slam, then you Everfrost him, that root is going to guarantee you get to put him where you want to put him with the explosive cast, which a lot of times is trying to knock him back. Right, you want to bounce them back into your team. The problem is if you just do that body slam and then you throw the explosive cask, I believe they nerfed it to where it has a guaranteed travel time of 1.5 seconds. I don't know if it's going to say it here or not. But basically they have time to react now. So you're, stunning them for 1 second off of your E, but they're going to be able to flash it. right? Or they're going to be able to, blink or something like that at the last second. And then that could potentially save them, right? If they're able to even just get a little dash off, like just a little Lucian dash, and it still hits them, it's going to blow them back. So it's really important to get that geometry correct. And if you hit the Everfrost first, it's going to guarantee that you get that knockback. If they want to flash, they have to do it before you connect with your cask, or before you connect with your body slam, because you hit the body slam, that's 1 second, that's enough time to hit them with the Everfrost with no reaction time, and then you're going to get to knock them back, unless they have a cleanse or something like that. So it just chains together extremely well with his game plan and adds a ton of extra consistency to it. And he has pretty good AP ratios to go with that as well. And, of course, it's going to add the burst from the Everfrost. So just a match made in heaven for Gragas here. Now, I would probably go with Cosmic, just so you could make more plays with his ultimate. Demonic's okay, but you don't have a lot of ways to really proc that from range, like, super well. Like the seeds that you have off of Maokai, and Cosmic just has a much better build path. So I'd probably just go Cosmic as your second item. But yeah, pretty good if you want to have Gragas, if you want to have the option of peeling or engaging. He has multiple tools to do that. With his E, his R can obviously be used to knock people back if you're in sort of a tough situation as well, which could be pretty good against a lot of these wombo combo comps, right? Where you've got, Cannon's running in with his ultimate or something like that, or, Mumu's about to close in on your 80 carry and you need to blow him back or whatever. Fiddlesticks just jumped out of a bush, you want to blow him away from your team. Whatever the case is, he's got kind of that versatility of peel plus engage. It's pretty good that some of the other champions don't do quite as well as he does. So I think that's a pretty decent option. I think his laning phase is not as good as some of the other ones. Like, I think Tahm Kench is going to consistently apply more pressure, and so will Orianna with their abilities. And I think that, like, Malphite's going to have a stronger engage, most likely, and Maokai's just going to have a lot more CC. But I think that the versatility of Gragas could make him useful. Vegar's another one that I think could potentially be really good in the laning phase. He's going to have that mana now. I mean, he always got an AP item anyways. But now with Everfrost being so much cheaper at 2,800 gold, and that this 1.5 second root combined with his cage, if you just don't if you're really good at the cage, you could smart cast it, great. But now you have enough time to where you hit him with this Everfrost, that's 1.5 seconds, you can just take the smart cast off of the cage, look at where the icon's going to be, and then hit him with the edge of the cage, right? Because I think the cage cast time is something like half a second, and they're not going to be able to dodge it. So that's what you have to do as Vegar. I see so many Vegars just putting the cage around them, just putting them in the middle of the cage. No, you clip them with the cage. You use it as a point click, 3-second stun. You don't want to give them the option of running around in the middle. So I think that Everfrost just really seals the deal. You get that 1.5. It should be guaranteed that you're able to clip them with the cage, get the 3-second stun. Obviously extremely OP if you're able to do that. That's 4.5 seconds of you can't move. So even if they have like Mercury treads, it's still going to be like brutal if you do that. So I think that's a really good combination with him. Gives him the survivability, adds to his burst damage, and of course Vegar can stack up really well during the laning phase with the Qs. I would probably do... I don't know. Part of it might depend on the matchup, but I might do 3 points in Q and then max cage, just because you are going to have the higher guarantee to get the stun on the cage, and it's just extremely disruptive in team fights. Like, it's very, very good against a lot of these movement champions that really rely on dashes. I know it's a nightmare. I'm kind of digging my own grave here by telling you guys this, but it's a nightmare for Rakan. And there are a lot of other champions that, lose a lot of power when they can't move. So anyways, I think that's very strong. And then of course Cosmic Drive is going to be very good. It's going to allow you to reposition, everything I've said about Cosmic just fits in perfectly, with his kit basically. So I think Vegar could be very good. Obviously he's going to be a bit more susceptible if they have the hard engage champs. But against some of these, bruisers in the laning phase, or possibly some of the enchanters, this could be a pretty decent option for him. You just got to be careful if you're against like a Leona, a Nautilus, something like that. You still might have a bad time. Okay, last few champs. We've got Swain. So Swain is... I think that the Everfrost is going to be a really good addition to Swain, obviously, because you can use it to apply a root, and that's going to guarantee that you're able to pull that soul out, pull him back. He just loves everything about the item as well, in terms of the health, in terms of the mana. That's going to allow him to spam his Q, to spam more never moves in the laning phase. It's going to be a fantastic pickup for him. And then, like, the new Demonic Embrace, I'm not sure how I feel about this because you are only going to get the 4.8%, which is what it currently is, so it's not less damage, it's just not more damage. However, you do get the health, and you do get some bonus health from, you know, ripping those souls out, so he does get a pretty good amount of health over the course of a game, so translating that over to ability power could be pretty good. But Cosmic, with that movement speed, being able to stay in close while you're in ultimate form and getting more access to more ultimates, it's hard to turn that down. I mean, that's 15% permanent movement speed in a fight for a champion like that. So I think you're probably just going to go Everfrost Cosmic, but again, it's going to give him more consistency in the laning phase. It's going to give him more mana for harassment. Then once you complete it, it's going to allow him to do his combo and just do his thing a lot more often. So he was already, like, not bad, especially if you pair him together with Jhin. He's always done damage. It's just, well, how do you scale, right? The items were just too expensive. But now they're a lot better, right? The Everfrost, as I've said a billion times, is like 400 gold less, massive deal. But even Cosmic Drive, yes, it's the same cost at 3,000, but it's the items to get there are very nice, and they increase the power level of this item like exponentially. So yes, it is more expensive, but it's very, very good. It's definitely worth like an item and a third, which is what you would get off of getting, you know, a standard, you know, 2,300, 2,500 gold item on a different kind of support, and then being a third of the way towards your next item, right, with an extra 700 to 500 gold. It's worth that. It's worth 1 1/3 traditional support items because of its new power level. So I think that that's really good. And also just the way that kind of the meta has been shaking out these days, where it's just really hard to complete 3 items in a lot of games. Games just tend to end a little faster, and they might slow down because of all these new bounties and stuff like that going on. But just the fact that you can get this nice, clean, like, big 2-item power spike on a support and just fit more power into that slot efficiency, and that you have this really nice, smooth build path on both of these items going into it, I think actually could be very, very good, even though the cost hasn't changed. The momentum of the game, and just kind of the meta and the way that it's shaking out, I think makes it more useful than it has been in the past, in addition to the raw power level of the item. And then Nunu's another one that, I don't know, like, he could be as high as S. I'm just not sure. I'm going to have to test it out. But I think everything's there for him to actually be quite good as a support. I think I've toyed around with it a little bit, but the items just weren't there, as is the case with a lot of these champions that I'm talking about. Cool idea, great kit for support. They just didn't have the items to support them being a support, basically. So what is it about Nunu in particular? Well, sort of like with Tahm Kench, I think these AP ratios are really sleeper. I think a lot of people just don't pay attention to Nunu's AP ratios because he usually builds tank. But it's quite good. I mean, the healing on his Q, if you eat a minion, is 90% plus 10% of your max health. So if you just eat the minion, which you're going to be doing with Relic Shield anyways, you're going to have the option to do that if you want to. So you're not taking minions away from your AD carry in a lot of situations. Still heals you for a hell of a lot. Like over 100. So he just heals for a ton, just a shocking amount. And if a team fight ever breaks out, and you're near a Scuttle or any of these minions, and I think minion or medium monster is stunned and pulled near him. Now, does he heal? Non-champions. Yes, so I think you can eat stuff like a Zyra plant, Malzahar minion, a Yorick minion. You can eat all of these other things, and I think you get that full heal. So in a team fight, if there's any of that stuff going on, or you're near other minions, or you're near a jungle camp, or whatever, you can just chomp something, and it's going to heal you for like 1 billion. So he has very good sustain, and it's pretty respectable damage. I mean, it's 220 base damage with a 0.65 ratio and 5% of your bonus health. So it's pretty good, and it's only cost 60 mana, and it's a 0.8 ratio. And this does allow you to counter jungle. That doesn't always come up, but especially with Scuttle being a bit weaker early, you can push the lane potentially, and then just go out there and just chomp the Scuttle if you want to. So it's a very versatile skill. It's really good. Can allow you, obviously, to steal objectives. It's not always going to come up as support, but it's on the table, especially if you're duoed with a jungler and you coordinate when you're going to chomp plus when you're going to smite. That could be a really good combination. And then you have biggest snowball ever. So this goes up to 150% AP ratio. 150%. Even with just 1 point in it, it's 150% AP ratio. That's a very, very big ratio. And this thing is awesome for ganking. So if you want to try to like push in and gank middle, or even gank your own lane, just act like you're going out to ward and then sneak back in with a snowball. You can find fights very, very easily. He can be extremely aggressive in the early game. And this also counts as a displacement when they get knocked up. So if you time this right, if something like a Leona's coming in and you press W, that snowball will knock her out of that engage, right? Or if, your Nautilus is about to hook your AD carry, if you throw a snowball at him, it'll knock him out of that. Same thing, Jarvan, flag and drag, all that stuff. So that's pretty helpful. Tristana trying to jump on your AD carry. So you got to time it correctly, but it can be used for that. But primarily just gank the hell out of your lane and other lanes. Like, you can really turbo dominate your lane. People think that, like, Blitzcrank or Leona ganks early. You guys remember, like, mid lane Nunu when that was a terror for a while? You can do that as a support, too. So, very, very good. I still think you probably only want 1 point in this early on, but it's a 1 point wonder. It's very, very powerful for just 1 point. Huge damage, even 180 base damage early game. 180, that's like a third of someone's health. If you like roll up to lane level 1, you've got a Draven on your team or something, and they're not expecting it. You come out of the river with this and just clap their AD carry with it. Like, you're going to be bringing the pain. So he does a shocking amount of damage off of just his base damages. And then even this snowball barrage, people are like, oh, it's just some little snowballs. Look at this. This is what I would probably max second. 432 damage with a 0.9 ratio. The hell? And that doesn't include, that's if you just hit them with all of the small snowballs. Then you get that little aura around you. If you land that aura, it's an additional 0.8, right? So the base damage on it's kind of low, but 0.8. That's a 1.7 AP ratio if you hit them with all the snowballs plus your little root at the end. You know a good way to guarantee you're going to hit that root? I'll give you a guess. That's right. It's Everfrost, right? So whenever you go in, you hit them with the snowball in a fight. You start hitting them with this snowball barrage. You hit a couple on them. It's going to apply that slow. As soon as you're about to hit that third one, just get them with the Everfrost. I don't remember how fast. It's a 1 second cooldown. So you hit them with a couple of snowball barrages, Everfrost them, and then you can land this. So after 3 seconds of the first cast, snowbound enemies around will up, whatever. Okay. So you gotta time it for 3 seconds. So you just slow them, and then after about half of the length, then you can Everfrost them and guarantee that you're gonna hit this last part. And then if they're rooted by this, for 1 second, it's probably pretty likely you're gonna hit them with absolute zero. Now you can also just Everfrost them, like hit them with your snowball, Everfrost them, and then just absolute zero them. And they're going to take a lot of damage off of that. Everyone knows absolute zero does 1 billion damage, right? But did you know that it also has a 150% AP shield on it, right? So you get a big, big shield off of this item whenever you come in. And of course, the damage is just astronomical. So yeah, Nunu, like, he's got a lot in his kit. The only thing that's been, and he even has a little utility, right? You auto attack somebody, you gain 10% bonus movement speed, and you give out 25% attack or 20% attack speed for 4 seconds. So I think there's a lot of potential for Nunu here. You could go with Aftershock with him. You could go with the new Frost Rune. I meant to tell you guys about that. I'm not sure like how good this is going to be, but like if you think you're going to be tanky enough personally and you just want the extra slow, so like I think maybe Tom Kench could potentially make good use of this, especially champs that don't have great other runes. This is, potentially really strong. Maybe Nunu on this as well. Applying a huge slow and reducing damage by 15%. It's pretty big in team fights. Obviously a great combo with Everfrost. But yeah, just going Everfrost into Cosmic. Again, he loves the movement speed. He loves everything about it. It's going to be an amazing item on him. You could go Demonic, but I think Cosmic's probably where you want to be. So yeah, just watch out for Nunu. Again, like a little more questionable, but I think on paper it looks damn good. We'll have to see. He has the sustain. He can deal with poke. He has phenomenal ganks. He has really good scaling, great AP ratios, great CC. He just brings a lot to the table. This would help you with assassins a lot. Now that I'm thinking about it, like people assassinating your ally with Everfrost, right? If like Zed's going in, you could just instantly pop that Everfrost on them. It's going to reduce the damage that they do by 15%, like a little mini exhaust. And then it's going to allow you to do all your other stuff to them. So that's actually pretty decent at protecting allies. Okay, but that's pretty much going to be it. I know we're almost out of time here. Anivia, a similar concept to everything else that I've mentioned before. She does have a good stun. She has pretty good sustained damage. Having that Everfrost does let you chain together stuff a little bit better. The really big thing is you're going to have access to mana in the laning phase by being able to get Lost Chapter and then complete it to get, a high quality item later on in the game. Now, she has exorbitantly high mana cost compared to some of the others. That's why she's a bit lower. She should honestly maybe be down in B tier. We'll go ahead and put her down there. Just because she still needs like blue buff and tier and all this other stuff. So it's probably not enough just to have Everfrost, but maybe it is. If you're not wave clearing all the time with your ult, if you're just fishing for hits on your Q and then using Everfrost to hold them still while you hit them a few more times, then she could be pretty decent. Talia's another one that I think, could be really good. Same drill as everybody else. She loves the movement speed, going Everfrost Cosmic, and being able to hit them with that Everfrost first is going to guarantee you get that W for the knockback into your Qs, into your E, all that stuff, and they're just going to evaporate. They're dead, right? So if you ever hit them, with your Everfrost or with your W, chaining that together is just going to be massive. Lassandra is another one who people asked about this on stream the other day. It's okay, but she has to get in really close, and her numbers are exceedingly low, in my opinion. Like the base damage on her, just all of her abilities and her ratios aren't that great. So she's someone who has a good kit, and also her poke is a little bit harder. Like you can bounce it off of minions and do some pretty decent damage, but if you're not bouncing it off minions, it's a very, very slender skill shot, so it's kind of hard to hit it. So there could be cases where she's really good in like a team fight, but if you want a team fight, just someone that's going to bust people up with like these new items, I'd probably just go Malphite or Maokai. I just think it's going to be, a lot more consistent in those types of situations, but maybe it could work out. A couple of other ones you can try that I'm not entirely sold on them, but that are interesting. You have, Malzahar, just getting more CC, being able to chain stuff together. Kind of like Lassandra, I think that his base damages are exceedingly low compared to a lot of other champions out there. But he could be helpful. Cho'Gath is one that's kind of interesting. I think that you might see this in mid lane, right? With Everfrost, Cosmic Cho'Gath could be pretty good. But in bot lane, it's a little more questionable. Demonic might even be pretty good on him if you, play him in a solo lane. Cosmic into Demonic, because you are going to get a lot of health, and Demonic does give you more AP based on your health. And that Glacial Rune, again, he's a champ that could really use that. Someone who doesn't have another rune that's really that great on him. Having that Glacial and being able to apply that slow could be huge. So he's all right. I mean, if it's going to allow you to hit your Qs a lot easier, obviously, if you're able to hit your Everfrost first. And then the Silence has a lot of utility. It's really good in team fights. His base damages are respectable. He has pretty reasonable scaling. You kind of want to last hit people with Cho'Gath so you get stacked. So that might, make your AD carry a little mad if you're always last hitting him. And that's really the only reason I didn't at least put him in B tier, is just because to get full value out of him, you need to be chomping minions, chomping champions and stuff like that. Now you can chomp them and not get the kill on them and just still let your AD carry get the last hit, but you're not going to get as much value. You really want to get the kill yourself if you're playing Cho'Gath, but it could be done. It could be good. Heimerdinger, Everfrost into hitting your grenade for the stun into, ulting with your rockets can be a very good one-shot combination. So we'll see. Heimer can poke a little bit in lane. He's all right. It will help his mana problems a lot, being able to get Everfrost and Cosmic. So I think he could definitely be playable, but I'm not sure if he's going to be the best. But anyways, that's going to be it. I do want to keep this under an hour, so thank you very much. Be sure to like and subscribe. Come by, check out the stream. I'll be trying out these champions over the next few days, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.